everybody on the Keto Recipes page. This is our normal Sunday night talk. We are doing coaching with Dr. Boz. I would like to introduce a special guest this time who's, I think, going to be joining us from now on, my husband, John Garza. He has been doing keto with me for how long, John?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Do you mind if I show them a before and after photo?
I don't. No.
Okay, let me go ahead and add it on the screen. Check this out. Look at this.
Wow.
Before and after photo. That's pretty cool. Okay, let me try and get back to what we're supposed to do now. Okay, so we are going to be talking about Dr. Annette Bosworth is going to be talking to us again, continue talking to us. We started the first live last week. She is coaching me specifically through my weight loss journey. I still have about 45 pounds left to lose. And we have decided to do this live every Sunday. Now, if you don't remember from last week, Dr. Annette Bosworth, I had reached out to her because she has a really interesting story. I met her because she has a book out called Any Way You Can. And yeah, show the book because it is an amazing book. Hold it a little higher. There you go. Perfect. So what it is, it's a story. Well, I'll let you tell the story.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Great. It's good to see you again, everyone. And nice to meet you, John. I can't wait. The book, yes, Any Way You Can, was a collection of the notes that I was using as an internal medicine physician to really better understand the ketogenic diet, originally to help coach patients with chronic diseases. This is, as an internist, that's what I do. One of my favorite or most poignant organs that I take care of in my clinic are brains that aren't working right. So I was really adamant about the research about how much better and faster you can heal a brain from a traumatic brain injury to Parkinson's to seizures. Unbelievable data. When my mom tried to die, she'd had cancer for over 10 years. She really took a turn for the worse. And she said, you know, if the doctor wants me to do chemo, I'm tapping out. I'm not going to do it. And I said, Mom, if it was me, let me show you what I would do. And that's where the book came from. She started at 71, turned 72 within a few weeks of going keto, and now is 74 years old, doing unbelievably well. I'm going to try and show you a picture of her. That's the two of us. And that was in February. Just yesterday, I do a couple of things in the year that are kind of my high points, and one of them is a workshop for Brains of Addiction, where I have everybody from coaches to therapists to policymakers in my community come for education on brains of addiction. And Grandma Rose, who is my mom, I call her Grandma Rose in the book, was the assistant for the book. So there were so many people that wanted to meet Grandma Rose. I'm like, I think you're more popular than I am here today. But it's great.
That's awesome. You know what? I just saw on Amazon, I saw a bestseller symbol next to your book.
Yes.
Wow.
Isn't that great? I who knew? I mean,
yes.
When I wrote that book, I pushed, this little publishing company that is, I didn't have a big name pick up my book. This is me doing this, and then, doing kind of biohacking. How do you figure it out to push a book, but not even push a book. It really is, how do you connect with an audience that needs to learn about something that they don't necessarily want to learn about? And I contend that the only way you change behavior that sticks is real relationships and good stories.
Yes.
And
yes.
Grandma Rose's story.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That book is a good story because I am almost through it. I have learned so much, even though I know we're going through this coaching. I feel like I have so many questions, but I'm not there yet. Like, we have a process to go through, and I'm just in the first week. And I feel like I have questions, but I don't want to bother you. And I know all of the stuff, all of the questions, everything we do is going to be live on this channel so that everybody else can learn. Now, one other thing I did want to mention is that we are in a doctor-patient relationship, but we are doing this live just to show everybody my process. This is not meant to be doctor advice for you. If you need something, please consult your own doctor. That is very important.
It's super. I mean, you look at the world of healthcare today, and you're really putting yourself at risk to say, "Hey, I'm going to go on YouTube Live and give medical advice to the whole world." That would be crazy. But when you reached out, I can't tell you the number of messages that come in, and probably from the book in some part that they had, reached out and sent an email that got sent and got forwarded, and finally I have 400 messages saying, "Can you tell me how to do this?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's so dangerous."
Oh.
But when you said, "I am stuck, I've been doing keto and I'm a really good cook and I am stuck, I'd like to lose this last 50 pounds," there was everything in my heart said, oh, an authentic relationship could be formed where I could teach you how, what it is I would be teaching so many people over and over and over again, by saying, "I see where you're stuck. It's a common problem. Here's step one. Here's step two." So the first thing that I gave you the assignment for was, and we talked about a little bit about this on the video last week, but more offline, was to say, whenever I'm coaching somebody to change behavior, I think the medical model where you show up and you close the exam room door and the only two people talking are the doctor and the patient, and when it's something super private, no problem. But when you're trying to change behavior, man, bring in the troops, bring the people that are surrounding you, so that I can help teach them at the same time I'm teaching you. Because especially chronic illness, if I teach a patient something that is like, cognitive dissonance, it's like not in their brain, this doesn't make sense. You're telling me to eat fat, and I'm telling you, I think I'm allergic to fat because I never eat it. So, that jump, and now you're going to go back into your most sensitive relationships and tell them that you were wrong and this is going to be different. Oh, that's just fraught with disaster. So when I said, okay, if we're going to do this, here are the groups that I've done this with before, or that I do coach other ones with. And that is, I need a couple of support systems. You need a group of at least 3. So that doesn't have to be figured out right away. So this week we'll get to your husband in just a minute, but we said, all right, there's an obvious support person in your house that I think you should invite in. But then we'll encourage you to add another third person. And especially because of the dynamics of when you teach someone, or if somebody's in conflict about a changed behavior that they're struggling with, it's amazing what happens when you teach someone else as they listen in. And I contend when you're looking at chronic disease management, or how do you course correct behaviors that have kind of riddled over to the ditch for the last 10 years, trying to get those behaviors out of the ditch, you do this one little conversation at a time and one slow step in the right direction, and with an accountability partner, which is essentially what this small group would turn into, this kind of keto coaching group would turn into.
Gotcha. So I want to ask everybody who's watching right now if they wouldn't mind telling us where they're from, maybe tell us a little bit about their own journey. I always love to hear, a lot of people follow my page because I'm a really good cook, and I take, look at John, I take recipe ingredients that we are allowed to use, and I manipulate them into delicious meals, and a lot of people on this page enjoy that. But I want to dive deeper in. I know that if you're following this page, you're either about to start, you're wanting to start, you're wishing to start, you're deep in it, or you are a master. And I've been doing this, a year and a half, since April of 2017. I figure that I'm pretty good at this, and I have issues. I've lost, 55 pounds already, and I've done really well. But there's something in our group, and I run a group of a lot of women, especially maybe my age, around my age, a little older, 40s to 50s. You hit a certain point, and all of a sudden you don't lose, or you're plateaued, and it doesn't matter. You can do the same thing that you've done before, or here's the worst part: you're bouncing. You're losing, you're gaining. You're losing, you're gaining, and you're bouncing past those 5 or 10 pounds. And everybody says, be patient, keep the course, do this, and you're just like, whatever. And your husband comes in 6 months in, and he loses a boatload of weight because it's easier for guys, and he's looking all spiffy.
Right. No, I would actually still call that a plateau, that up and down thing that you're talking about. I wouldn't call that sustainable weight. And I know that one of the cycles of frustration is that they get hope that they're losing, and then they do that. So I would still call that a plateau. I mean, it'd be great because I go back and look at the comments too on your page to just see how long you've been keto and if you've hit a plateau, because that was really what had you reach out saying, okay, how do I do this? What am I doing wrong? I love the diet. I feel better, but I really would like my weight to get down to where it would be a healthy, long-term, like longevity kind of bragging numbers. Like I can live the rest of my life at this number and be healthy.
Yeah.
So I would love to see if the listeners have that.
Yeah.
All right. So should we review what we did last week?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You have asked me to do intermittent fasting for 12 hours a day. You have asked me to test my blood glucose, my ketones, and you have asked me to divide the glucose by the ketones and get a percentage. Can I explain? I know that there's a lot of people on the page that have questions about how do you test. Let me just go through those real quick, just for those who are listening, because I feel like we're experts, but there are some newbies on the page. So I've tested in the beginning. I've tested with urine. It's great. It's a great tool. I feel it is for learning mistakes when you're just getting started. Now, there is a breathalyzer test that I use. It's very expensive. But if you want to do breath, I can hook you up with a company who can do that. Like I said, it's pretty pricey. Now, what I do is I bought this I bought this meter. It's called the Flora 6. Actually, I put a link to it in the comments. The reason why I like this one, and there's also the Keto Mojo, but let me tell you, this one I feel is the most accurate. It is the one machine that it's one machine that actually calculates glucose and ketones together, and you don't need two different devices. So I want to say it's on sale right now for just over $100, and that's with the strips and the Lantus and all this stuff that you get. Like it's a cute little, it's not cute, but it's a neat little kit that I use, and it's got a little travel pouch. And it's just, this is what I use to calculate all of my readings because I know it's accurate. So I just wanted to explain that for those people who are listening. So,
yeah, I think that's another thing that when we first started out, many people who hop onto the ketogenic diet, I'm a big proponent for checking to see that you're in it and then living your life. And if you continue to lose weight and you get to your goal without having to do any further checking, in the book, Grandma Rose and I used urine ketone strips. We didn't check glucoses or anything else until we got to a critical point at about 9 months into her story. And you look, the story is very similar with you. You're like, I peed on a stick. I got those, urine ketone strips. Keeping in mind that when you check the urine ketone strips and when you check, you're not checking for actual fuel. You're checking for waste products. Like your body is not going to let these ketones overshoot. They can get a little bit high, but there's a release valve, and that means it's released through your breath and it's released through your urine. And once your body is adapted, you don't produce as much waste products. You really have those, they kind of get into a lower zone. What we like to see is that you're making enough fuel to meet the needs of your body. And boy, that human body loves to have what we call homeostasis. Here's what she's asking for, and here's what we gave her, and it matches. So then the urine strips turn out to be not as accurate once you're keto adapted, because in theory, and the theory actually turns out to be positive sometimes, that you made as many ketones as you needed and you really didn't waste very many into your urine, but you're still clearly in ketosis. So one of the first things I asked you to do was get a meter. You're going to have to check some numbers. And so that's talked about saying, this is what I have my patients do. Urine ketones are great for the beginner. I did not check my sugars for 9 months in. And it's only when we got to a difficult spot that I stepped it up, which is kind of what's happened with you. We're here at a difficult spot and saying, okay, what about those urine ketone, or what about your blood glucose numbers? And again, what I think really attracts people to this diet, once they get past the fun, lose the water weight, get feeling good, their brain's doing really well, is they realize especially if they've tuned into any of the, YouTube or books, that you can really clean up the debris of the unhealthy living that's been going on inside your body as long as you use the chemistry. It's not a guessing game. There really is some science behind. We should give you the best we have today. It's not perfect, but it's the best we have today to say, did we ignite autophagy? So we'll get to that a little bit more when we talk with your husband, John, but let's take a look at the numbers that you have. So if you go back to the November 9th, you've got a column there for your glucose, and then you got a column there for your ketones, and then you've got that percentage of at least, which I call ratio. So you took the glucose and you divided the ketones into it. And why don't you tell everybody when you did this, and as far as what was going on in the timeline of what hour of the day those were taken?
Okay, so honestly, I think we started our first live on the 11th. So I kind of probably don't even want to count the first two because I don't remember when I took them. And I don't know. So let's start with the 11th because
okay. The first two were you figuring out how to poke your finger and not run away from the blood. Like, it's a learning curve. It's okay. It is something where it sounds really scary, but after you do it a couple times, you're like, okay, really, it wasn't that bad. Exactly.
So on the 11th, actually right after our talk, the very next morning, less than like 5 hours later, I jumped on a plane and headed out of town. So this first day, I think the 12th was probably the most difficult because my eating pattern was off. I don't even think I got a full 12 hours, or maybe I got more. But the 13th through the 18th, I can tell you, I stopped eating at 5:30 at night, and I had my first cup of coffee at probably 5:30 to 6 in the morning. And that was pretty routine for me.
That's awesome, because the key, when I ask people to put in, I think one of the other conversations you and I had prior to all this was you shared one of your fears, which is, I know you like this fasting thing, but I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if that's the right thing for me. I don't know if I can do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate that the world hears the word fasting, and then your brain goes to these extremes where there's people on YouTube or they fast for 10 days and 6 days, and you're like, I don't need you to do that much fasting. And let's start with 12 hours. 12 hours. But during those 12 hours, we are going to give you the best science can offer you, which is, I need you to be really good for 12 hours. And then I pushed it a little bit further with you on the first week, knowing that you really do want the weight loss, which was to say, if you want the best results, you can't affect, I don't care if you're a night shift worker or not, you can't stop that morning cortisol from bursting and falling every day in your circadian rhythm. And I can say that with a lot of confidence, that we have shift workers who've been that nurse who's run the night shift for 25 years. And we put her in the sleep lab and we check those hormones. And at 4 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 in the morning, her body still surges the cortisol, even though she's up and doing her job as the night nurse. And that releases the sugar and starts the body's circadian rhythm for the day. Unfortunately, you can see after 25 years, it does shift a couple of hours, but it does not flip. People say, oh, you know what? I've been doing this forever. My body's used to it. I'm like, no. If you look at the science of our body, it loves to do the things it's supposed to do during the light hours. And then there's these things that happen during the night hours. One of them being this cortisol surge, which raises our sugar. And that is very programmed within your system. It's very rhythmical. So I tell you that because people often say, well, 10 o'clock at night, and I just didn't start eating until 10 in the morning. And I actually pushed you back on you, saying, I would really encourage you not to do that. Some people can't start there, it's too difficult, and I'll take whatever 12 hours I can get. But if you want the best results, it's to say, figure out what time you wake up in the morning. And if you're in a plateau with a ketogenic diet, you're keto adapted, get past the fear of checking your finger and get some numbers that are glucoses and ketones. And then really try to take your morning cup of coffee, that first thing that goes into your mouth, and subtract out 12 hours before that. So I must say, as a mom with kids and a full life, kudos that you were able to put the cutoff on and say 5:30 at night is when I'm going to stop. Did you have any troubles with that?
You know, having a history of hypoglycemia in the past, it is ingrained that you eat every 2 hours, you eat all the time. And I don't eat a lot throughout the day. And then my normal was that I'm really, really busy. And then all of a sudden in the evening, I'm like, oh my God, I'm really hungry. And I didn't even realize I was hungry all day. There'd be days I would go all day and maybe eat my one meal in the evening. So that's clearly against what my hormones are doing. And I think that's very important to point out, because when you are fat adapted, it is really easy not to eat, and not to eat at the right times. So the 12-hour fasting, it's a psychological thing. As a family,
it's a big deal. You'll have people out there saying, but I can't, I have to have my morning cup of coffee. It's got to be at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock, whatever time they get up in the morning. I'm not good at, and my family doesn't get home until 7 o'clock at night. That's when we eat. And that's why I've said, I'll take whatever I can get. If you want the best results, it does come with, give me from your circadian rhythm minus 12. And by say circadian rhythm, I mean, what time are you waking up? And then fire backwards 12 hours to give me that 12 hours of only water and salt. But Jennifer, you did a good job, but not everybody can do that. So the other part that I think you said something is you didn't really like black coffee. You were putting a lot of cream in your coffee. And again, that's very keto. So is coconut oil. So is MCT oil. Those are all, yes, you're doing a good job. You've got keto. I mean, you're going to be in ketosis. But did you continue? I know you mentioned something the first time about taking away and just having black coffee. What did your coffee look like when you drank it in the morning this past week?
So this week, and if you told me not to have butter and cream in my coffee, then I totally didn't listen to you, or maybe I purposely didn't remember it, because I did put a little bit of butter in it. You didn't?
Yeah, no. I didn't tell you that. No, you had said something about, I even tried to take away the cream in my coffee. I wasn't sure if that was something you were still doing, or if not. No, it's totally game. Keep it off. If you give me 12 hours of only water and salt, you can have cream in your coffee.
Okay, so I did put butter and I put a little cream in the coffee.
Perfect. Okay. So for other listeners out there, I'll give you a hint though. If let's say you're that gal who has to have a supper at 7 o'clock because you're the primary, supper maker for the family, and you get up the next morning and your sugar and ketones. I mean, you have some really good numbers here. Let me just look at them again. So yeah, you have some, blood sugars in the 80s and 70s, one in the 90s, all really good. That's really good numbers. And we're checking them at the end of a 12-hour fast. So this is a very good reflection of how well she emptied out her liver. And if you haven't taken a listen to the book, it's a really big deal to say, why does somebody get stuck in a plateau? And my answer is going to be, your liver is not what you think it is. And they'll kind of, their eyes will gloss over, or they'll just kind of dial out. I'm like, no. Livers are not something where you need to go get a CAT scan or have a bunch of lab tests. I need to check your blood sugar, and I need you to do it on an empty cycle at the end of the cycle. So getting these numbers that first week and just showing me that you do a pretty good job. When you fasted, you did a good job of emptying your liver. I have lots of people that still lose weight. They still do a good job, but their morning fasting sugars after 12 hours of fasting are somewhere in the 90s, 105, 110, 112. And that's not good. To me, I would say, it's really high, but it's coupled with ketones that are 2.2, 2.4. And that's a whole nother lesson we'll get to a different day. They still lose weight. We still get them through the plateau using those numbers, but it's different. You have a really good advantage that your liver got emptied and you're making pretty strong ketones by the end of those 12 hours. In other format, if you take that gal who was having the supper at 7 o'clock, and then she's like, okay, I got done eating at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to try to fast until at least 8 in the morning. In those patients, I still have them try to check the sugar as close to getting up as you can. As soon as you wake up, you stimulate that your body needs sugar. So the glucoses will go down and then they'll go back up. And then your ketones are going to be pretty good in the morning, but they're fuel. So you're going to use them. So then they're going to go down, they're going to go back up. So I love it if at least for the first week, I can get a baseline of how well their liver does after they've been asleep all night. But if they're the gal who's eating supper, I'll push out the calories in their coffee. I'll say, all right, if you can't give me the 12 hours, then I need, as you know, I like the 0 calories for 12 hours, even if you start it later than it should be started. Like I love it if you to do it just like you did it, which is you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and that means 5:30 at night you stop eating. But if you can't do that, then you get up in the morning, check your sugars, your ketone and blood ketones, blood glucose and blood ketones. And then I want you to keep no calories going in until at least 12 hours. And if they're in that zone and they're doing well, try to use hunger as your stimulator. Like, okay, wait, did I get hungry? Am I hungry? Because a lot of times when they wake up and they don't put any fat in, they don't put any calories in, it really sparks the body's production. And if you can start making ketones with your own body's fat, well, that's weight loss. And so when we look at those ketone numbers, that's a really good production that you were emptying fat cells during the night and that your glucose was a really good. I mean, you weren't having probably any gluconeogenesis. I mean, some gluconeogenesis, but mostly you were just ketone production with good energy.
So if you notice on my notes, I did a lot of walking on the 14th and the 15th. I was in New York City and walking was just everywhere. I mean, I was on my feet from morning until night. So that was interesting to see that in the numbers. Also, I had a lovely little wine tasting party.
Welcome to life. Okay, right? So yeah,
it was in the afternoon though, and I didn't have a whole lot. I mean, I probably had the equivalent of maybe 1 glass of wine. I don't know if it was keto friendly or not. I asked for the reddest, the driest, the one that was no sugar, and the brand happened to be one that was no added sugar. So I'm pretty sure it was okay. But let me just ask you, because this is burning on my mind. On the weekends, there are like I think once every 2 weeks, I love to have a little vodka drink, forget about life, and just do it. And I'm thinking that's in the evenings, like that's like 8, 9 o'clock at night. And what I'm doing now, I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that. But you know, it's just once in a while. So so I guess from hearing you say that earlier, I can still have that. I just need to have the 12 hours to empty my liver of the stuff that I consumed. Just do black coffee or preferably nothing, just salt water until that empties the next day, which I really don't have a problem eating no breakfast or not having my fatty coffee. I can do that. That's not a problem. So it sounds like that's the hack to where if I do have like over Thanksgiving, I know for sure I'm going to have my vodka drink.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So this is the part where the coolest part about this diet is you don't have to guess. I mean, I'm going to give you advice. I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen because you've told me some things that give me some reasoning like, oh, doc, I've been over 100 pounds overweight and I have lost half of that and I want to lose the other half. I didn't gain that in the last 2 months. I've held it onto my body for the better part of, 10 years, whatever, 5 years. I can't remember what you said. Insulin resistant. You've been insulin resistant. Your body stored more fat than it needed. And it did it for not just a week or two, but a good chapter of at least 5 years. So knowing that, you have an equation that's your system. You got 18 months of ketosis, you got some good weight loss, and now you're in this stable place. Okay, so to get you out of the stable place, we need the sugars to be low, and we need the ketones to come from your fat cells and raise into your system. A calorie-free zone, it might be the only thing you need to do to get you out of the plateau and get you losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. It could be as simple as that. It depends on how insulin resistant was your body when we started. And people get a little weird about this. They say, well, I want my blood tested to show me that. Okay, you could do that, but it's a distraction. You can just check your blood sugars and your blood ketones, and then you can do some life experimenting. So that's what I would encourage you to do. the Thanksgiving's a few days away, and you're going to have some alcohol, probably past the 5 o'clock hour because you're around family. And I don't want patients or anybody to say, we're going to use this diet to destroy my relationships, to tick off the rest of the people not on the diet, and isolate myself because I'm on a ketogenic diet and now I can't be around anybody. Well, that's ridiculous. That's not what we're doing this for. We want you to take this highly anti-inflammatory process, improve the health of your body, and then fit it into where it fits into your life, but understand what you're doing. So you've got some really great numbers that say, I think it isn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. I was expecting your numbers to be the higher 90s and the hundreds.
Oh.
And I don't want you to get worried that if they go up to that, there's a couple of phases here that we'll see what happens. Don't get worried if you're at home and you're following along with Jennifer and you're like, yeah, doc, but my numbers are 100. I'm like, just hold the course. And the only thing I want Jennifer and especially those early plateau people focused on is 0 calories for 12 hours. This isn't that hard. You can do 12 hours.
And people are asking what breaks a fast. So you are specifically saying salt and water. That is exactly the 12 hours. Let's not confuse it with let me have this ketone drink, or let me have this with a little bit of this and under 50 calories. You are talking strictly salt and water.
Right. And it's especially because we're trying to help you lose weight, right? We want your body to push its metabolic state and increase it. Your husband had this higher advantage that he had more mitochondria in his body, more muscle cells. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he started to turn on those muscle cells, he had probably 20% more little burning furnaces in his body. And once you do, it's easier to recruit the next one. It's easier to recruit the next one. You're a woman, you have different hormones and less mitochondria, and you've had babies. So your system has already done this zone where you protect itself from, that's what happens when we make babies, that the hormones do some things that make us more insulin resistant. That's why diabetes shows up a lot of times in pregnancy. And those hormones are there for protective reasons as you make another human. We're happy about that. But now you have a set zone that can sometimes be hard to racket it back down. And you do not have the advantage of the extra mitochondria that your husband had in all those muscle cells. So when I say break a fast, let me just give a couple history lessons. I truly encourage you to go read or listen to the book that I told, because you'll see that I did not do a water salt fast anywhere in that book until Grandma Rose got in a serious problem, probably in the last third of the book. What we did for fasting is we had cream in our coffee. We had bone broth with fat in it, really salty bone broth. We had butter in our coffee. And what we were really able to do is we were peeing on a ketone stick. We were losing weight. We were feeling good. There was no reason for us to take it to the next level. Our chemistry really allowed ketosis to flourish, and our bodies were like kind of still in shock that we were doing all this fat. And it really worked. There was no problem. When people say, I have a problem, I need to help with my autoimmune disorder, I have cancer, I'm in a plateau. That's the reason I had you do those glucose and ketones, because I want your ratio, okay, which is what you call the percentage there. I say the word ratio, percentage, doesn't matter, whatever. Let's go to the first one before we started talking, just when you were learning how this thing works. You had a blood sugar of 94, and you had ketones of 0.8, and your ratio was over 100. Mm-hmm. You're probably not going to lose weight at that. And in fact, I could be pretty confident that when that ratio is greater than 80, that's not a weight loss zone. That's great. Your body's in an anti-inflammatory state. There's ketones in there. If anybody was like taking a test question, are you in ketosis? Well, yes, you are. You're in ketosis. There's ketones there. But if you're trying to say, I'm trying to lose weight in that zone, not going to work. That does not equate to weight loss. We need that ratio to be under 80. And even all the way down to 40, the lower it is, the faster you're probably losing weight. And I don't like to encourage that, but because we want sustainable. When patients come and they say, Doc, I have this autoimmune disorder, my gut leaks, or I have Crohn's disease, or I have psoriasis, or I have lupus, all these anti-inflammatory problems. And if they're in crisis, like they're in a big hiccup of a mess, I'm pushing their ratio to be between 40 and 20. And if you look at your little list there, let's see, you hit 38 on the 15th. And that was the day you did all that walking and you had your highest ketone number, 2.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of them were all, essentially you were between 40 and 80, which is solid weight loss zone. And if that's your goal, bam, you're doing awesome. It's going to be fine. You're going to be just fine doing a 12-hour fast. And the parts of this that I really like to hear is how you were, it didn't sound like it was too disruptive.
No, it wasn't. I found that it was something to get used to, and it was something that I really had to think about. And also, I should tell you, if nobody knows this, there is a cool little app called Zero, Zero,
yeah.
And it counts down. The minute I take my last bite at dinner and I know that's it for the night, I hit the starting button, and then there's this fun little beep that happens when you reach your goal. And you can set your goal, and my goal is set for 12 hours. But it wasn't hard. And I did lose 2 pounds this week. I did do the beef and butter fast, but I totally did lose 2 pounds. So that's great.
Right. So here's what I would encourage you to do for this week. I want you to keep doing the 12-hour fast. I don't want you to say, well, let's go to 14. Well, let's go to 24. Well, let's go to 36. Again, I want sustainable. I want to see you successful at this a little longer. And I want to see how well your family dynamics are impacted by this 12-hour fast. Let's tackle the holiday conversation too. Is your family celebrating on Thanksgiving, or is there Thanksgiving and another day that you're celebrating?
So we are a law enforcement family. We never celebrate holidays on the actual holidays. So we will do it one day this week, but it won't be probably on Thanksgiving.
That's totally real. So whatever day it is that is the holiday, I want you to be sure when you have your holiday eating that you keep the fattier foods at the beginning part of the day. Now, you've said you haven't had sugar for 18 months or however long it's been since you've had sugar, but most people aren't that good. Maybe they just can't cook as well as you. The treats and sweets come about, and those are very tempting. But I really want your body filled with cholecystokinin early in the day. And that's this hormone that ketogenic diet, people have a lower amount. If they're low fat, they have a low amount of this cholecystokinin. It's secreted when you eat fat. So if you have a low fat diet, you don't make very much.
So eating the fat. So the fat, give me an example of the food you want me to eat first that's at the table.
Turkey skin.
Right. So if you have this, if you get this turkey skin, but also like any cheese, any like if you have meat sticks that have like just a platter with meat sticks and cheese. If you can do a couple of have servings or hors d'oeuvres of that. Any kind of like sausage balls, meatballs, if somebody has those as hors d'oeuvres around, but do that instead of the like pickles or broccoli or like the carby. They're not very high carbs, but they're not as high in fat. So if you can trickle the cholecystokinin to be flowing in your blood before you sit down to the meal, you're going to eat less. It's a hormonal thing. You won't even know you did it. It's the coolest way to help somebody lose weight, is help them hack their hormones.
Okay. So John and I are totally going to be fighting for the fat off the skin of the turkey come Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there's this one recipe out there where they take the chicken skin, and they make the chicken skin into chips.
Yes.
You ever done that?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, well, I've never done that. Sounds complicated to me, but dang, apparently they rave about it's nice, fat, chicken filled, and there's like all kinds of like good chondroitin, glucosamine, good stuff in there that you're like, oh yeah, keep doing that. That's a good one.
If you miss chips and if you want something crunchy, just deep fat fry chicken skins. You will get the crunch. Yes.
Really? Yeah. I haven't done that yet. Again, I'm good at fasting, not so much good at cooking. I'll leave that to you. All right. So when it comes to the alcohol on Thanksgiving Day, I want you to also just be aware that distilled alcohols are going to be the lowest carbohydrates. So anything that's been through a distill system, like a gin or some of the whiskeys are distilled. Whiskeys are distilled, but some of them are sweeter than they should be. Bourbon is distilled. Vodka is distilled. Okay, you know all the ones that are distilled probably. That is a great low carb. It still does stop the production or the use of ketones. Alcohol will stop your keto process, but you usually hop back into a ketogenic process if you're keto adapted, and if you don't take the alcohol moment and then start eating sugar because your inhibition is lower and you can't say no as easily. And then the other thing about the day that you eat the ketogenic or the alcohol and you're with a family, just start your 12-hour fast when you're done. When the family celebration is over, then start your fast. It's ideal if you get up in the morning and you don't have anything but salt and water. Even black coffee, if you need to have coffee, have black coffee. You don't need to have a caffeine headache, but salt and water is the best. Black coffee is what you get in there next, or tea if that's what you drink. And if they add the fat to the coffee, it really does change the equation. One other big hint that I give people when they are about to take on a celebration day, if they do have a hangover, and I mean that by a carb hangover or an alcohol hangover. If you've been ketogenic for a while and you've had a tough chapter of, or you have a solid chapter of ketosis and keto adapted, and now you don't, you get this celebration, and they sometimes just kind of go hog wild. Oh, it's my favorite this, and I haven't had it forever, and I deserve it, and it's so good. And I wake up in the morning, and they're like, eyes are puffy, and their fingers are swollen. And if you read the book, that happened to Grandma Rose too. She actually had it through an IV. She'd been fasting for 40 some days, and I left the country. She gets rushed to the hospital, and they put an IV sugar, and she'd been keto for like ever, and then she'd been really strongly fasted because of this medical complication that you'll read about if you ever read the book, or for those who read the book. But they put the drips in, and her eyes swelled shut. She swelled so quickly with this infusion. My sister sent me a picture, and I'm out of the country going, oh my God, they're going to kill her. Awful.
Oh, that's
but definitely a hangover. And I mean that happens to people when they're keto adapted and they put a bunch of carbs in. This is the time where I would have some BHB around. I don't have a lot of that. I think exogenous ketones are helpful for certain times, and this is one of those times. If you have a hangover, or if you have and by I mean carb hangover or a alcohol hangover, the next day, if you feel awful, just have exogenous ketones. Just use that as go through the next 12 hours of just sipping on that all day long. It is amazing how quickly you can turn that keto process back up. And if you want something fun to biohack, check your sugars and ketones as you do that. It's really cool. So that's what I recommend for hangovers if you end up with a hangover over the next week.
Poor John. Somebody mentioned, one of my friends says, John looks tired. Poor guy. He had worked. He escorts the UT football team. He worked really late last night, and he woke up really early this morning. So if he looks tired, it's probably because he really worked hard in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I'm going on 3.5 hours of sleep.
Oh, honey, that's awful. I gave this lecture yesterday about brains and how horrible they don't repair when you don't sleep well. Next time I'm going to have to invite you, John.
Okay.
So let's do that. Let's actually have John tell me a couple things, because I want to hear about what besides your wife, what attracted you to want to do the ketogenic diet?
Well, I was low carb for a while Jen was on the stricter keto diet. So I would just not eat breads, not eat sugar, not eat sweets. And on the weekends, I'd have my beer. And every once in a while, I'd have a hamburger, you know. But and I lost weight. Then I plateaued. So my motivation for losing weight is arthritis in my knee. So I have several injuries on my right knee, starting with high school football, ending with a motorcycle crash at work. But my last ortho appointment that I went to was a new doctor. He's looking at my x-rays in the hallway, and he's never seen me before. And they walked me into the doctor's office. He's looking at my x-rays, and I'm in the room waiting. He comes in, walks in, looks at me and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, wrong room," and leaves. And then 5 minutes later, he comes back. He says, "John Garza?" And I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "I'm sorry. I thought I was looking at a knee of an 87-year-old man." He goes, "You have the worst knee I've seen in my career." And this is an older doctor, you know, for a man your age. So arthritis in my family, and my dad's side is hereditary. So I have a really bad right knee, bad left knee. So obviously, I don't remember the equation. So many pounds of weight relates to so many pounds of pressure on your knee. So that's the main reason why I wanted to. I plateaued at high carb because obviously the beer and the occasional hamburger was keeping me from losing that weight. So I went and followed Jen on her diet plan, and I began losing more weight. I've been doing a little bit of the fasting thing, not as I'm horrible at tracking stuff. You can ask Jen. I'm horrible at remembering to take my supplements, but I've seen to lose a little bit more in the last couple of weeks. But so the lightest I've ever weighed in my adult life was 198, and that's when I graduated academy after months of rigorous exercise and running. And but so I'm now at 213, and my goal weight's 200. So like, I guess doctors say for my height, I'm 5'9", I should weigh 150. I think I was 144 at birth, I'm guessing, because I've always had a weight issue. So I'd be happy at 200. The pressure off my knee is already helping, but I live with pain every day in my knee. It's just something I've just gotten used to and worked around. I sleep with pain, not that well sometimes, but so.
Well, so let me give you a couple of things that I just heard there and see if I have this right. So what's motivating, you were obviously influenced by your wife's diet. Definitely. So you followed the rules that was in the house is what you ate. Good job. That's how you keep a marriage together.
Yes.
But then you had some benefits of weight loss, and then the knee has become this kind of, if you had to pick your why, it's that the knee limits you at work or limits you at life when you have pain. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay. So.
Oh, we lost her.
Oh, no.
I know, right when she was just about to say, hold on, let me see. Oh, here she is. She's, let me see if she's back.
Oh,
hold
sorry
on.
about that.
Oh, there you are. I don't know what happened.
Sorry.
Technical difficulties.
Perfect. We're back. Okay. So if you look at that, what happened with the knee years ago, those were little injuries. But when injuries hang around for this long, boy, the message it sends to the patient is the pain gets worse. And I keep talk about it is your knee will keep giving you a message until you listen.
Right.
Unfortunately, sometimes when they wait years to listen and do something about it, the options aren't as abundant, and we use things like, opiates or anti-inflammatories, or even alcohol will be used to help reduce pain. But I know you were listening to the audiobook at some point. I can't remember how far you've made it. Have you made it to that chapter on? Oh, good. So you've probably heard the autophagy lecture then, or the chapter on autophagy?
Yes.
Right. And for the listeners out there, the autophagy is the the chapter on how can I take the debris that's inside his knee and recycle it, which would be healthy for his body. He could use those proteins, but more importantly, it would be gone from his knee. And so there's I do a lot of my talks on autophagy for the brain. How do you help reverse Alzheimer's, reverse Parkinson's or depression and brain injuries? But boy, those arthritis, those joint pains are definitely part of that calculation as well. So have you poked your finger and checked to see what your blood sugar is yet?
Only once. And that was right after dinner. And my glucose was high, but my ketones were 1.5 or something like that.
Okay.
I meant to do it this morning because I was on a 13, 14-hour fast because I was working overnight, and but I was too tired, and and I had to get to work again. So
life comes in the way. So that is the key about success on this too. Is the reason I'm not pushing your wife to do anything more than the 12 hours is because I want to see how her success carries forward.
Right.
And the same thing is with you. I want to see over the next week. Can you check your blood sugars and your blood ketones, and set a goal of 5 times in the next week?
Okay.
We love to see what it is when you first wake up in the morning. Just like what I did with Jennifer, is I'm trying to see how efficient is his liver. Of course, if you heard me say a bit ago, if I want autophagy, maybe I didn't use that word earlier, but when I'm looking at those anti-inflammatory, that psoriasis or Crohn's disease or rheumatoid arthritis, in those patients, I really try to get their ratio between 40 and 20. That's a really solid, and you might get there because you're a guy, and if you give me 12 hours of salt and water only, I wonder if you'll get there. And is there any other alcohol you like besides beer?
Vodka. So
okay.
I hadn't had a beer in 7 days. I hadn't had a beer in a whole week.
Oh, okay.
Pretty good.
So if you can choose an alcohol that, alcohol is something we can cover over the next several visits, but if at the beginning, I just have them shift alcohols. If you're going to have alcohol over the holidays, try to not have the highest carb one, which is beer.
Right.
I mean, there are sugar drinks out there that are made up with ice cream, so I guess those would be even worse.
Well, I've gone through all the morning process with my beer. So in that week, I've and my partner at work, he is a beer connoisseur. And he loves
really?
Yeah. We'll go into the convenience store. He starts talking to me about all these different beers and craft beers.
Oh.
But anyway, I've put that in the grave. I'm not going to have a beer again. So yeah.
Well, and I don't say never. I love a good beer too, but I'll tell you, until we get the knee cleaned up, think of it as we're going to shift some things that give you the best chemistry and the best chance of autophagy.
Okay.
All right. So each week we'll get a little better at this, kind of checking in, doing a little faster, but I think it's important for our audience to get some backstories for who I am and some of the science behind it. I'm really thankful that you have taken time to listen to some of this, because it makes my job of taking what's in my mind and putting it in yours. I can reinforce a whole heck of a lot better than I can to start from the bottom and lift them all the way up. So thank you for listening.
And let me tell you, for the audience who's listening, I know that a lot of you bought the book the first time we did the show. So when we come on, I would love to hear what chapter you're on. And then can I say something? Isn't that a great idea? Tell us what chapter you're on. Yeah, or tell us what you learned, because every chapter I learned something. And I don't really want to divulge too much of what I learned, because I know we're doing this whole process. But I did find something interesting. And I know, Dr. Boz, you also said this. When I bought the book, I bought it as, you gave it to me as the audio first. And then I bought the audio for my husband because I didn't want him touching my chapters. And he listens to it on the go, and I listen to it on the go. And then I gave it to him. And then there was a sale on the other one. So I bought the Kindle, and then I actually bought the paperback. So I know, because I travel. And I was thinking I bought it. But then after that, I ended up buying like 3 more for 3 specific friends who I knew were dealing with things. And I just knew that if I gifted that to them, they would probably like listen to it. So I know that you had mentioned that other people have told you that once somebody buys it, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're gifting it to somebody else. It's because it is value packed with information, and you don't even have to digest it at the time. You can skip to chapters that relate to you and what your issue is at the moment. So I found that interesting.
Right.
And I'd just like
my
to
favorite
say that real quick, that about your book, I've heard about intermittent fasting, and we've talked about it at work even before this came up or before we met you. And it was just always in the back of my mind, that's just crazy. But when you explained it and how you explained it in layman's terms, that was awesome. And that's what really, and now I can go tell those people at work that we're talking about that this is what it's about, because in layman's terms, because when you start talking about, like, you know, the physics in those $12 words, people lose track easy. So I enjoyed it. It's a great book.
Thank you. I do think that the highest calling as a physician is it's my job to know the studies and know all that stuff, but it's supposed to come out of my mouth in a way that educates the audience without turning them off.
Right.
And sometimes I think we forget that in medicine. We have 20-minute visits and we hurry through it and we say, I hope I can just like barf onto them what they need and send the rest out of the prescription. And the truth is there's never going to be a healthier person because of that. But my favorite story of somebody on the book was, you know, Grandma Rose had cancer, and he was looking for, his mother had died from cancer, and he was trying to give back to anybody on how this book, to give what he would have given to his mom, he wanted to give to somebody else. And I said, go to your local hospital and meet the people who are suffering in a cancer care group right now, and, you know, gift it to them. Because the worst part about being a cancer patient, or even somebody who's stuck overweight with joint pain, they lose hope. They think they can't do it. They think it's not possible. And I'll tell you, this has been the best energy that I love giving to this, because of how many lives get transformed with the information and the step-by-step little bitty change. Don't jump off the cliff here. Little bitty change on how to improve their health. So,
hey, I see a question here that I think we might be able to answer. It's from Selma, and it says, when do you know if you're at your ideal weight? BMIs are not that reliable.
Well, so the BMI has had a tough reputation. I would tell you to get in the green zone for the BMI, though. When you look at BMI, it was a really narrow zone when it first came out, like within about 5 pounds. Now they've spread it out to about a 15-pound range that allows you to say, is that the right weight for your body? John, when you said that you hadn't been lower than 195 since whatever year you had, my husband's just, yeah. So is it 20 years? How long has it been?
I was 210 in 6th grade.
Okay. So yeah, you've been heavy for a long time. But what I would contend is that if you look at the aging process and you say, I have this knee problem, the first thing my mind did was saying, he's 1 inch shorter than my husband, and I know my husband's ideal body weight, which is 170. So, you know, there's definitely room to say, if we want that knee to not be replaced, to last longer, to get the autophagy and really restore, people don't think this is possible, but to restore that destruction, then we need not only autophagy, which is going to be what we're going to work towards as we look at these numbers, but we need a lifetime of not re-injuring it. So that's where I would push you to say, looking at that BMI, I know it's had a bad rap, and I know it gets frustrating for people with weight loss. I'm 20 years into advising patients, and I'll tell you, the BMI has a lot to do with the range that's 15 pounds. So make sure it's one of those that does give you that range.
So this comment is from Jim and Robin, and they say they're on chapter 19. They love that there is hope for regeneration in ailing brain and body. Isn't that amazing? And we have one question that says, what is the name of the book again? If you can show the book again, any way you can. Hold on, let me show just you. Give me just a minute. Any way you can, right there. And then it's also, the link is in the description of this video if you want to go right to the book. So it's called Any Way You Can. And I think
it really is one of the best teachings. Like right now, I have a ton of people who want to come see me as a physician, and I'm like, not unless you've read the book. I gotta have you start with the education level here. And it really is, if you can't focus enough to read, listen to it. If you can't listen for long periods of time, go to YouTube and watch the chapters online. That's for free. I'm not about, I really enjoy the journey I'm on, but the education is something that I really feel called to do, and I think I do a good job of it. So
you
take
do.
advantage.
You do. Well, I think we're just at the 8 o'clock hour. We've been on for an hour, so I think it's great. John, thanks for joining us. I think we're going to join, John's going to join us from here on out, and I'm going to be interviewing to see if we can get one other person who can help support me in my weight loss journey and come on here, and they're going to learn. I know they're going to gain so much from that. So I'm still at the process where I'm going to pick somebody. I just haven't yet. And
that's really, honestly, adding them in is going to be great, and it will add to the depth of this support group, which is really what I want. I want it successful, and I know we're going to need a third, give you the best chance of success long term. Yeah. So keep picking and know that it's not an urgency, but it's important.
Okay. So we will be back here at the Keto Friendly Recipes page at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time on Sunday. I do want to let you know also that John and I are the people who run, along with many other moderators and admins who we love dearly, but we are very active in the Low Carb Inspirations Plus Keto Friendly Recipes Facebook group. It is a closed group. You do have to join the group, but we are in there. We give tons of support, recipes, all kinds of stuff that we share in there with stuff that we learn along the way. So if you want to find us there, I want to say, Dr. Boz, you can find her. She has, not only does she have the book, but she is highly active on YouTube. So you can just search Dr. Boz YouTube and she will come right up. Also, I will put your YouTube link in the description as well. Did I do that? I don't think I've done that. Okay, so we'll do that as well. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Good job so far, and keto on.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.